So Americans still spending money, and what you'd say maybe is this is just good enough. But as you say, it's gasoline prices. You look at what's happened with gasoline prices over the last 3-4 months. Americans as we've still spending money and out of this war. They've been way up. They've been down, and that's there to the end of June. And now we're going back up in July. So we'll see what happens when we get the July numbers and how that influences people's spending. A couple of other numbers that were out today were pretty good. The Philadelphia Fed really rocketing up, 41.4 for July. It's one of the early reads on May.
What's going on, traders? So yeah, I was just looking at Bloomberg just a minute ago, seeing if they were saying anything important for today in the market, but it doesn't look like they were saying anything. Now let me touch on a couple of things before the market starts going in a frenzy, right? So gold, if you've been tuning into some of my recordings on YouTube, you know, we've been talking about the possibility of gold selling. Well, if you just look at the overall trend, right? Now, I didn't catch this position because I thought we were going to come back to the gap, but the highest move that we made was like testing the low of the gap. So I guess that, I mean, at this point, that signifies that that was the correction right there, right? So gold has been in a downtrend this entire year, especially after we had this sell-off in February. So we had the sell-off in February and then price pushed back up still in February. Yeah, from February to March, and then we continue selling off. I realized like at this point that we probably were gonna sell, but again, I don't trade gold that aggressively like I do other pairs. But at the core of like trading, you know what I'm saying? When you look at the basic foundations of trading, right? There always has to be some form of a correction. There always has to be some pullback, some type of give back, whatever you're going to say to make sense of the market. And with gold being on an uptrend for so long, like this year definitely made sense for a price to actually have that correction. Now, what we're looking for is like, where's gold going to possibly land before buyers start resurfacing? Well, shit, we just got to look at areas that the market initially broke out of that we never returned back to. So if you look at this area over here around 34.97 to 31.22, that price range, that's where consolidation was made. So if gold does anything like in relation to indices, which has been moving a lot like indices this year, gold will probably try to target some form of consolidation or some area of structure, which I still have my markups from. This is last year. I still have my markups left from last year in areas that I was identifying because I, for one, last year didn't believe that gold was going to go on this bull run like it did. But when you factor into the tech sector, when it comes to the stock market and them using gold to make chips, that makes all the sense in the world now that we have this information. Before, I didn't know that, you know what I'm saying? I didn't know that they were using gold to make chips and stuff, but that makes sense. So that obviously influenced gold's behavior in a positive manner and took the fuck off. And now we're at that season where new investors need to have the ability to invest in. No matter what, across the board, you've never seen the market to where somebody couldn't invest in it. And what I'm saying is that when these prices get super high, like when you look at these big businesses, they're looking to invest in obviously energies or metals or things, but at a decent price. Just because they have the capital doesn't mean that they're trying to buy it at the highest price because they can. They're just like the rest of us. They want to buy it at the smallest price possible or at the lowest price possible, right? So this makes all the sense that gold, I don't know the reason why gold is selling off other than providing the technicals that this was resistance made right here and we just needed some form of a correction when you go out to the higher time frame. So yes, I'm aiming for gold to go to 3,500. Yeah, 3,500 before we start looking at potential buys. That may sound crazy, but hell, the move fucking last year was crazy for the buy. And make no mistake that, like, look at this. Not even last year. This is just where I looked at that bull move, but look where we came from, all the way from 2023 basically. So you're talking about the potential of gold coming. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't know what would trigger the market for gold to come all the way back down here. But even if we are coming back down to these levels, I would think that gold will start to range until it's ready to like break out again. So we may not see gold break this high for quite a while, like maybe like the next 3, 4 years, possibly, if it's moving with that consistency that it's been on. But yeah, I'm looking at 3,500 for gold to come back to. We still have to break this support right here, but after it never came back to this gap, after it never came back to this gap up here, because remember, I always highlight my gaps with purple, either purple circles or purple zones. And the highest we reached was here. I was looking for it to come back here, and man, like missing my fucking entry. This reminds me of when I first started trading. 47 pips right there. 50 pips if you want to say, give or take. You know what I'm saying? Or especially if you're going through structure, it's probably like 52 pips that I missed that entry. And gold has been selling. It actually came back up here to test this gap that was made. I wasn't sure if it was going to break it. Look what it did. And then came back up yesterday to create resistance. And now we're selling off. And it's as clear as day that bears are in the market. You know what I'm saying? Like point blank, period. So what I really wanted to discuss though was indices. Obviously, if you've been tuning into our YouTube, you know we primarily focus on indices or really anything in Forex that's gonna produce like higher income. But obviously, if it has the ability to do that, it's normally at a higher risk. So this is US 30, and what we need to understand is that when these financial leaders or these big figures, when it comes to like the new Federal Reserve president, I've seen this over and over where these guys will talk, and then it doesn't matter like what's going on at the time that they're talking. The market normally gets brought down after their conversation. It'll be all confusing, you know what I'm saying? Like the market will be in a sporadic behavior, and then after they're done talking, the market will get brought down. When we're looking at a bull market, not a bear market, the market will get brought down and gives us opportunity to buy after the conversation. I'm telling you, I've seen this when Jerome Powell talked the last time. And hell, a little bit of no, all this was this year. You have to find a pattern. So all this was this year that I was seeing that, damn, after all their conversations, yes, the market will begin to rise, but only to pull back. And then what it's doing is pulling back to an area of support that's just at a lower position. And it's been consistent with that through all these meetings that involve the Federal Reserve president, right? So this week we had 2 meetings with the new Federal Reserve president, Kevin Warsh, right? So maybe you don't care about what he has to say, which, you know, you don't really have to care about what he has to say. It's just about what's the reaction after he's done talking. So both times that when he was speaking, the market got bullish, and after he was done his conversation or his testimony, the market will be brought down. And I saw this specifically with US 30. I wasn't looking at NASDAQ or S&P, but I'm sure they did something very similar to that. So this was all that movement between Wednesday. Where's Wednesday morning at? Right here. Between Wednesday and today. So we bought up. This was yesterday, and he started speaking at 10, and then the market got brought down. So we bought back up after post market, right? Sold off just like, you know, we normally know that the market may try to do because it's trying to establish some form of structure around the London session. So we normally expect that even when price is moving kind of in this funny behavior right here. So price pushed down, bought up. Is this today? My bad. It was Tuesday and yesterday. Tuesday and yesterday, not today. Tuesday and yesterday. So where is it at? I forgot what news we had. I think this was ADP appointment news. So the market was selling off, and then ADP bought us up. Oh yeah, 10 a.m. So this was him speaking. Market sold off. Boom, boom. Same thing. Same thing. Opening, I mean, during post market, London session brings us down. and then the market's moving all choppy. We rise up. He speaks again. The market gets brought down. Look where we're at now. You know what I'm saying? All this looks like market structure as long as you've been following it. If you ain't been following it, it looks like Chinese arithmetic to you. But even in this movement, we've been still building uptrend. We've been creating lower highs that's going to bring us up. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking. One thing I'm just pointing out is that using that information to put you in a better position. You don't have to care, like, again, what these figures are saying, what these people are saying, you just have to see how the market reacts after they're talking and even while they're speaking. I'm telling you, that's going to put you at a better advantage than other traders, even if it sounds like gibberish to you, because it's like, what happened after they were done? Okay, after they were done speaking, market got brought down. I mean, initially it was getting brought up, but basically when he started speaking at 10 a.m., the market was looking to push down. And you can go and pinpoint it now that we have the information here. So just looking at this, I'm looking at this to be, well, I was looking at this to be our buy zone. And I can go deeper into like other forms of systems that we use. I don't know if y'all familiar. Well, I don't know if y'all been using our concept of the 9:45 a.m. candle to kind of use that as like a zone to see how the market is going to react that day, or if the market is going to stay below that zone for the entire week. When was this? What's today? Today's the 16th, so that was 3 days ago. So yeah, Monday. So this was Monday's 9:45 candle. You can see that Monday brought us down for the entire week. And this is the low point we created for the week. And ever since then, we've been buying up, right? This is the 9:45 a.m. candle zone from yesterday. I don't have it marked up with a date because I didn't want, a bunch of, markups distracting me. But anyway, so you extend the zone and you see how the market reacts in orientation to the zone after 9:45. So after 9:45, the market got brought down, but this was what? This is yesterday, right? So yeah, this is after he's speaking and stuff. So this is in conjunction with what Kevin Warsh's testimony yesterday. So even if you didn't use the 9:45 candle and said, I'm just going to use that zone just to mark up the zone, but I'm not going to use it to possibly have an entry right now. So he talks, just like we said, the market gets brought down back to another 9:45 zone, 9:45 candle zone that we have marked up. And this was from July 9th. So we're currently at this one from yesterday after being brought down, So as long as we maintain above the zone, you know what I'm saying? I've been using all this information. As long as we maintain above the zone, price is going to continuously buy up. Obviously, we know 9:45 is approaching us. I mean, not 9:45. Opening bell. Opening bell is approaching us. So there's been a lot of news out today that may change the reaction of opening bell, but our normal expectation is that opening bell is going to bring us down slightly. I'm thinking just a slight pullback just because how we've been moving, but the market could be vicious. It could do a vicious pullback and try to do another liquidity sweep before pushing back up. But either way, these are still our buy zone territories. That hasn't changed. S&P, we did our little drop this Monday. So at the beginning of this week, we did a drop. And finally, we actually are above the resistance zone we were initially looking to buy at. So this was our zone for a while, and the market did, continue. I think our zone, once we got right here, once we got up here, and then you see price started building the resistance down at specifically this candle. And since then, we've been up, and all we've been doing is market structure. Of course, there's been a lot of manipulation because, again, the market is clear for what we're seeing now. We didn't see this information before. But this area was one of our buy zones that we were looking at. So yeah, I'm still looking at S&P, NASDAQ, US 30 to be bullish. And I'm glad it came back to this zone because I feel like this was the last correction that we needed in order to boost the market up. So we just got to get past opening bell and then maybe see what 10 a.m. does. But like I said, like we still been buying. Like I haven't changed my narrative on what the buy zone has been. I mean, on our bias for the buys, right? I've been kind of off on like what my expectations are because again, the market, yo. You're going to be manipulated by that. But still, everything that we've utilized to like identify like how the market is reacting, I'm telling you, it's not foolproof, but it's damn sure been spot on, yo. So even if we, and all this stuff ties into you knowing how the market or how your specific currency pair moves. I know Mondays are just terrible days to trade. You should know that as a trader. You know what I'm saying? Mondays are just terrible days to trade, but that doesn't mean that you can't collect information. You could have taken a sell on Monday. I'm not looking for sales, so I wouldn't have taken that. Oh, and also, you know, this has still been maintaining. Even though we came all the way back down Monday, this was our zones for last week. So I gave this out from our group last week. And you can see that we still been maintaining, besides like coming super low to this stop loss over here. This was our first position. This was our second position because price dropped down, right? So price did push back. And I did mention that there was a possibility, but again, like I don't know how like the market is gonna run. Um, all the time. But again, having these zones and extending them came right back down to that support structure. And then we closed our actual structure at resistance. So now this resistance, this once was resistance, is support lining up with this buy zone over here. I always emphasize like, yo, you got to take the money, even though, you know, there's opportunities like, because you now after price pushed back down, that was a second opportunity to jump in. I took profit like when we were up here, but I just entered a little prematurely, like somewhere up here, thinking that the market was going to keep going up. But still riding our zones from our original entries of 52, 198, and then we're above 52, 337. I was definitely looking for us to stay above that because that was our first entry. You know what I'm saying? So oil, I don't know what oil's doing, but remember, as long as oil sells off, indices will buy up. But oil is still at this gap. This was the last gap that I believe that oil could possibly push up to because we already came from these zones over here. I know there's a lot going on, but so we already came from this gap over here. We already came from this gap, this major gap down here. Oil didn't fill this, but it could have done like we just saw gold do, where gold built that resistance and then sold off in order to test the bottom of the gap. I'm not familiar with how gaps work with oil and gold, so I'm just kind of going off of what the market structure is showing me as far as like price action, right? So I'm expecting oil to either sell off here or to do a slight push up and then sell off. If oil does push up, then indices will probably do a slight push down. You know what I'm saying? So that's been the correlation between the two because of what's been going on in the Middle East. So yeah, like this would be a good sell zone for oils for sure. I'm not trading oil, but I'm just saying for those of you that do trade oil. I'm gonna get back into trading some of these pairs, but I just look at them right now because they've been like combatants against indices, and I've been using that information to make sense of what indices been doing. Just a little bit. Obviously, I'm still using market structure, basic technical analysis. So we just got to see what oil's doing. 10 minutes to the opening bell, so let's see what's going on. I guess while we're waiting for that, Bitcoin, I am definitely a crypto bro this year. I think these are all the signs that we were looking for, to be honest, of what cryptocurrency was trying to do. So I think this is the final wave or the final leg of the market to start making bull moves. So we'll see. But I did explain that this was the low of February, so we actually made structure below this. So to me, price collected the liquidity it needed in order to buy up, and now we're in the low territory of where March was made. So I ended up creating this zone because this was the low of March because it made like a weird gap or some shit like that. So this was the low of the monthly candle for March. So all I did was extend it. We're at the low, and we know price does the dips that like we're not paying attention to. And normally that gives you the green light to say that, okay, since it did do that dip, Because again, like just to keep it generic, buy the dip, price should be buying up from here. So yeah, I'm not looking to trade crypto, just invest in it. But yeah, I do think that this is the buyer's territory now for sure. We said this. We said 65K. The lowest it came down to was like 58. We said there was a possibility of 50K. I know there was a lot of traders in the crypto community that was looking at 50K. We didn't get that. I don't think we're going to get that. It was that range of 65 because that was the last big move that Bitcoin made when you look at it on a higher time frame. I even have it zoned up. This move over here, because I know this is where everybody was like kind of waiting to see what crypto was going to do, and it built its bullish momentum, and it just took the fuck off. And then we had that one pullback back to 74K. We made a high, and we mentioned that 25K will probably be the area that price decides to sell off from. If I could find that video, I'll definitely attach it. And this was last year we said this. So when you look at it, keeping it simple, we're back at consolidation that we broke out of, and we're at a level of resistance, a major level of resistance. So again, basic concept of Forex is that once we break out of that resistance and return and we start rejecting that area, we're now turning that resistance into support. So fact that price is getting bullish right around these areas, these highs, like that, to me, that's not like just a coincidence. All right, 7 minutes. So NASDAQ came down to this area. And I was looking at this morning, I was like, this is probably where it's building the support. So indices has this pattern where it'll have like a leading move. It's easier to identify on the buy side. Like I don't think I've been able to identify it on the seller side. I just look at structure. But anyway, this is the leading candle for the buy, right? So we created this false narrative of resistance because what price needed to do was establish support. Again, you can identify this in any one of the big three indices, but I've seen this movement so many times, like I can identify it with my eyes closed. Again, it comes into like waiting till price produces this information because a lot of times, like, I was looking for a price to buy up here, but this is where the support is at. So I'm glad I still have this area marked up. So the fact that price is buying up from here and we're closer to 930, yeah, I'm definitely looking at this to still be the buy zone because we've established support. Everything is based off of what the structure is showing you. And even though we didn't close this yet, the fact that we do have a dip already next to an area of structure, this was a double bottom, and then we pushed up, and I think price is just testing this double bottom. Basically, if you look at it on a higher time frame, it should just be like one dip down, not like how you saw. We're testing the high right there. You see how it's like one movement. So once we get this candle to close, I expect after it does possibly a little dip for price to make another valley to bring us up. S&P looks clean. So you see how NASDAQ and S&P are looking very similar. They're in close relation to one another as far as like their movement. That doesn't mean that when NASDAQ is buying or S&P is buying, you just press the buy button blindly. Nah, look at the areas of structure. So find wherever it's resistant. You can see, look, same thing here. Leading move, support. Did they both do it on the hour time frame? Yeah. Like look at that. It just looks slightly different because obviously they have their own movements. And S&P looks more up than NASDAQ, but they're damn near doing a similar thing. The same thing as far as like the pattern. You have the leading candle, the leading move, and you have your dip, your first dip down, your second dip, what we're hoping to be and then price will buy up from here after the chaos ensues at 9:30. So that's what we're waiting on. Waiting on opening bell, and then we'll see how the market reacts, like a little bit closer to like 9:45, and then a little bit after. But we'll probably shut this down like 9:50, and then it's up to you to make your decisions. But yeah, these are areas that we've been talking about already. Even though price has been like pushing down slightly, um, we've still been building that uptrend. So the narrative doesn't change, the bias doesn't change. It's see what they're saying real quick.
Manufacturing
Bloomberg,
for July.
So incredibly valuable.
one of their commercials. So I was expecting this move instead, like yesterday or the day, but I think yesterday. I was expecting something. It kind of did that, but it stopped short here because this is where the resistance was at. So I'm expecting price now to ignore that and buy up from this area. Well, this is our next level of resistance, so we could have like some type of struggle up here where price actually pops off. US 30 has definitely been having a slow build in comparison to S&P and NASDAQ. And I think that S&P and NASDAQ, the way they're moving, they're just allowing US 30 to play catch up because they've already broken highs like 4 or 5 times this year. US 30 has only broken its high twice. Either one time or twice. And the reason why I'm thinking we're going to have a struggle up here because, again, identify the 945 candle and zone it up. Mention this to my community. Hold on. So this is the 945 candle. I zone it up and then I extend it. Now, a lot of times, like, I'll be trying to get rid of some of these markups. I don't want to have a lot of chaos on my screen, but knowing that it's there is important. So even if you didn't have it extended and you're like, okay, because look what this 945 candle did. Again, it tells you what's going on. It tells you what's going on, at least for that day. So this is what, July 7th? Could have taken advantage of the sell if I was looking for it. I wasn't looking for it. Could have taken advantage of the sell. You had your pullback to test the 945 candle, and you do expect some type of pullback. That's why I'm saying that when price is going to push back up here, we could have a fucking fight because this will be the first time price pushed back into the zone. See what I'm saying? We're seeing the same thing happen with these other zones that we're creating with the 945 candle. So it's not about like, okay, I draw the zone, I have exactly what's going to be the direction. No, what's going on and can I make sense of it? So I would have known using this information that price was selling off. I'm telling you, this is like, it ain't foolproof, but it's pretty accurate. You know what I'm saying? So once we get up here, and as you can see, opening bells pushing us up, which means that if opening bells pushing us up at 9:30, I'd definitely be scared of sells. The only difference is that there's a lot of news going on. So that's what I was saying, that it could change the conditions. We just gotta wait, see what, again, 945 candle comes out, see what price does over there. But we are looking for price to hit our target today. The highest target I have is 53.90. So it clears that. We see if price does a pullback and then look to re-enter for a buy. But I'm telling you, this could be where price starts to get, not try to get bearish, but throw you off by coming up here and then starting to sell off back to these lower levels. we'll see. A lot of this stuff I'm gonna end up erasing, but you know, we'll see. This is what I wanted to see though. You know what I'm saying? Like a push up, and then let's see how 10 a.m. is gonna react. But you see, like whenever I see like an initial buy up, I'll be kind of nervous because initial buy up at like right at opening bell can kind of signify that price is trying to sell off. But I said the only thing that'll make that different is that if there's a bunch of news surrounding it. So whatever you use, as long as it has like a bunch of red folders, that can kind of negate how we look at opening bell for just for today because of all the news that's surrounding it. But yeah, I'm looking at this to buy up. So they're doing the same thing. I rather them do these movements now than to try to continuously buy up and then, you know, start doing these moves later on. You just gotta let it do its thing. Gonna try to manipulate anybody that's buying in. That's a good sign as long as we stay up on price action. That's a good sign right there. Yeah, gold is coming down for sure. And oil's just at a standstill right now. So oil may not even try to come down. It may start to consolidate for a while before actually trying to make its move down. See if they're saying anything important.
We're coming back.
It had that kind of detective story feel.
Rare earth elements. I mean, there could be a time when the U.S. develops a frostier relationship with China and it's harder to source rare earth elements, or at least the processing of them.
No, that's never going to happen, Christina. Kidding. So when you say slow the build out, who does that affect? Because all these orders are already in. So would it affect the memory chip makers? Would it affect the, you know, the steel makers that supply the steel for the data centers? Who does it affect?
Well, it really depends on how much of a slowdown it is, right? So it could very well be that it's still enough to keep going, but it does affect all the components, unless, of course, you have something that could be a game changer. So the big issue with the data center
Definitely not just gonna give it to us. This is what you got to deal with indices, yo. But when you get these initial reactions, that should kind of put you more at ease. Just got to get through the chaos. But like I told you, we always expect opening bell to try to bring us down. I don't know normally where, but as long as it's not doing one of these moves or it's trying to bring us down the entire day, I expect this type of reaction to look like the market is selling off. And then when we get closer to 10 a.m., try to buy back up. Yeah, this is a morning star pattern. So all this looks like is that price is pulling back in order to test that pattern. Same thing with NASDAQ. Just got to be used to like how indices like operate. This is just what they do. That initial move was straight, but like I said, I always say, like, if opening bell gets bullish outside of like having a bunch of news surrounding it, you kind of want to be nervous of that if you're looking for buys. I think this happened, yeah, this happened Monday. Got bullish and sold off. Oh, so if I didn't mention, when we're looking at the 9:45 a.m. candle, we always look at it on the 15-minute time frame, always. So I'm only looking at it on the 15-minute time frame. For some reason, that shows the greatest visual of the zone. And plus, when you look at it as far as like intervals, like 9:45 is going to be easier to see on a 15-minute time frame. You'll see when you start zoning it up. So what we're waiting for is clearly the 9:45 a.m. candle to produce. To finish, open up and close, and then we'll box it up and see how price reacts in orientation to that. But ultimately, I'm still looking at price to be bullish. You know what I'm saying? Like this doesn't mean that I'm changing my bias because of what's going on, but if I have to adjust, I'll adjust. But I do want to see how price reacts to that 9:45 candle today. It's already doing what I would want to see from this candle already. We're already above it from being low. So, from this zone. So just out of yesterday's 9:45 candle, I'm liking what I see. I just want to see how today is going to react and if we're going to get the push up and price is going to close above that zone. So I'll leave this a little back so I don't have like a bunch of stuff going on. But yeah, we'll just wait for that and then close the session. But like I said, I'm not changing my narrative. Looking at buys. Oil is starting to show some push down. It's acting very slow. Or just have Bloomberg
Build out is largely about 1990s. So many of those companies have survived and thrived. It's all about being actively managed and evolving with the evolution of the technology. I think beyond that, though, is being well diversified, having hedges, and recognizing all the risks that are out there. We haven't even talked about the Fed and the potential for tightening.
We only got a minute left. Do you want to do that real quick?
Sure, you bet, absolutely. So I think the bigger risk right now is not the Fed funds rate.
Right.
It is the potential for a shrinking of the balance sheet, which I think has the very real ability to drive up yields on the long end. And of course, we have other forces at work that are also likely to drive up yields on the long end. That could exert downward pressure on equities.
How much do we shrink? He did say we're not going back to 2006 levels. That ship has sailed.
Yes, but this has been an environment in which the balance sheet is still very large. So any kind of material shrinkage could have an impact. It's really interesting. As soon as the announcement came out about Kevin Warsh as the nominee for Fed chair back at late January, what we saw was the San Francisco proxy Fed funds rate started to diverge from the Fed funds rate. It started to tighten, and it has continued to tighten since then. And of course, that's factoring in all those other monetary policy tools that if you were to actually have them as part of the Fed funds rate, shows a tightening environment. And I think that's what we're going to get, and I think we have to factor that in.
Christina, this has been an absolute masterclass. I hope you'll come back again soon. This was so excellent. That's Man Group's Christina Hooper. And let's get a quick check on your equity market this morning, about 10 minutes into your trading day. Again, we declined down 0.4%. On the upside, we had some good health earnings. United Health Group, they're on the upside, and we did have some poor health earnings to start the week. So you're seeing a rebound there. Names like United, Johnson & Johnson. The consumer names are doing really well. Walmart, Coca-Cola. So it's the physical things that are doing well. What are not doing well are the tech things. Again, kind of maybe getting into some of the risks that Christina was talking about. This spending and the concerns around it, especially since we heard that amplified by TSMC. So NVIDIA, Broadcom, Micron, a lot of the chip makers are down. And tech, so is one of the worst performing sectors this morning. If we flip it up and look at your group rank returns so far this morning, tech is doing poorly. Healthcare actually unchanged, even though you had some of those big names doing well. Utilities, that's the worst performer though. And the top performer, communication services and consumer discretionary. I actually, just looking at this, I think this is all wrong. If Val in the production room, if we can just hit the refresh, I actually don't think that this is today's session because we were down. There we go. There's your session today. Here's what it actually looks like. Infotech is down 1.6%. Healthcare up 2%. That makes a lot more sense. Fani.
Yes, it does indeed. Danny, well spotted. Coming up, Eli Lilly buys a psychedelic drug maker backed by billionaire Peter Thiel. We discuss the emerging medicine next. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
So they weren't saying nothing important. So yeah, we're just still waiting on, like I said, 9:45 candle to open and close, kind of give us an idea of what's going on. Still struggling to break that zone. NASDAQ. And this is the low of actually this support structure. So looks like it's targeting the low of this wick right here. Same thing with S&P. So these are the low points. Price would have to break these low points to start considering that price is trying to drop, lower than this resistance right here. NASDAQ, I could definitely see that. It's just been the more aggressive pair as far as like its dips. But the lowest point I could see is back to the high of this, but still closing structure to meet this as support. Right. For some reason, like when it's time to buy, should be like the move takes long, but when it's time to sell, it's like it holds no restraints. It just starts selling. We can barely get this on the buy side, which is crazy because we did come from a long way. But when you look at overall, like look how the market's been like jagged. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, we bought up, but we haven't had any strong buy moves outside of like this. All of them been like choppy buy moves. Basically since April. That was the last time we had like any big moves. After that, they started getting choppy. But this kind of breaks down the different quarters. You start seeing this with the different quarters of the year. We're in the third quarter now, so you should expect that the market, one, be more trendy. So it is trending, but it's like the market doesn't give any grace for the buyers. But when it starts selling, look at this shit. This was this year. When it starts selling, it's selling. I mean, we up, but it seems like the buy takes forever. And it's like most of the time when I saw the buy, I walked away from like the charts, like doing something else, and then came back and was like, oh shit. It's never when I'm looking at it. Okay, it's 9:45 right now. So you can't zone it yet. I mean, you could start, I do start like for me, I try to find out where the low point and the high point is. So say this is the low point already. I'll just extend it if price starts rising, or I'll extend it down if price starts pushing down. And you just want to cover that candle. And all you're doing is creating a zone. You're not even trying to say, oh, prices, whatever candle it produces, a bull or bear candle, that doesn't identify the direction. That's just like what that candle did. So like I said, if it comes down, I'll extend it down, but this is the current low point. And then if it goes any higher, now if it ends up being like a small candle, like I might not even mess with it. Like if the candle stays like this and it's just like a doji, I'm ignoring it because it's not even a strong enough candle for me to use that as information. So I need it to be something at least, within these parameters. Where is the 9:45? Didn't even capture. Hmm. So you see, this is the low and high point. Looks like price is going to try to push down slightly, and I extend that. That's why you can't try to make sense of like, okay, I'm gonna enter based off of what it's doing right here, and then it produces another candle on the opposite side that comes through and buys back up. All these things are pushing down a lot lower. All right, I'm gonna stay on for 5 more minutes and we're shutting this down, but you get the idea of what you need to be looking for. So if price does drop lower, it'll give you an opportunity for a sell, but everything is in orientation to how the zone, how price moves after like the 945 candles close. And we're still testing from yesterday's 945 candle. So even if you ignored this one, as long as price stays above yesterday's, which this isn't strong enough data for me, in my opinion. Like, cause the candle's so small compared to like how my other zones are. Came all the way back down to that low. It's fucking crazy. I wouldn't say that's crazy, but no, that's crazy. Like look at these moves. These are like strong moves for indices. Like that was a nice move to the upside and the downside. But again, difference between ranging and difference between consolidation. Ranging, you can take opportunities with these. Consolidation, you can't. Okay, Bitcoin starting to show some progress. Once we leave that 65K area, I'm not saying to the moon, but I think buyers are in stronger than ever. We definitely need like a strong push up, kind of validate that price is buying up. So like I said, we'll see what happens after this candle closes, because even though it's selling off right now, that doesn't mean that that's the move for the day, but we'll kind of know what's going on for the rest of the day. But that's all I got, traders. I will see y'all on the next video with Digital Goats Academy, which will be our weekly review. So that's on Sunday. But yeah, I'll update that, next week to see what happens after today. I know it's creating like, I know the market is pushing down slightly, but again, we haven't closed this 9:45 a.m. candle, and we'll see how price reacts after that. But hope y'all make a lot of money. I hope this was valuable and useful to you. And I'm Antoine Farrar, as always, signing off. Peace, traders.